Welcome my good smelling friends, Ify here. Today I'm gonna show you my top 10 fragrances for this spring. It's not gonna be a list of very popular fragrances, guys, so if you are looking into my video and wanting to see fragrances like Versace Dylan Blue or Versace Eros Flame, stuff like that, you're not gonna see it in this video. You are going to see a couple of popular designer fragrances, but they are not available in stores and people in general don't talk about them because it's hard to know about them if nobody promotes them. So that's why I'm here. Usually on this channel you will find fragrances that are very good, great price and smelling great. Very much comparable to, you know, the mainstream fragrances. So let's begin. At number 10 we have Addictive Oriental by Alberto Morillas by Mercedes-Benz from the VIP Club line. This very much is an Oriental fragrance, but a very spicy one. It's very peppery. It has a mature side to it and also a retro side to it. So this is not a very modern smelling Oriental fragrance, but very much retro smelling, and which makes this fragrance quite unique and interesting. And the performance is also very good on this one, as the price is as well. The next one we have a very unusual smelling fragrance from the house of Dahlia. It's Dahlia Century. Not many people talk about this fragrance, even though I think it has a great quality, great size and price to this. Performance also great. The smell is like when you cut open a fresh wood and you get that fresh wood smell. Combine that with the flower of Neroli and that's what you mainly get with this fragrance. I think it's very nice to be worn during the spring, as the rest of the fragrances I'm about to show you, because most of them are flower theme based, because you know spring is mostly about flowers. At number 8 we have Dirham by Al Zafran. This is also a flower-based scent, with the main note being jasmine. I love jasmine in a fragrance. This is a very complex but cheap Middle Eastern fragrance. Compared to the other Middle Eastern fragrance, this has a thing on its own. It changes a lot. It's not linear. It's one of the best cheap Middle Eastern fragrances. Still, I'm saying that because even to this date there aren't many that can compare to this one. There are other good Middle Eastern fragrances, but those are clones and they have other purposes, but this one I truly appreciate it. The next one at number 7, Versace The Dreamer. A classic, a timeless masterpiece, I could say, because it's one of those DNAs that it doesn't get dated. It's still not as modern as the rest of the fragrances. It can be worn by teenagers these days. It's just that it doesn't have the sweetness that most of the modern fragrances have. But yeah, it's not a very easy to love fragrance. This is one of those fragrances which you either like or hate. I'm on the like side. I don't love it, but I do like it. And I think it's still one of those fragrances which from time to time you're gonna grab it, because it's not something you get bored of. It's that unique. At number 6, it's a very modern fragrance, meaning that it was released recently, but the smell is not as modern as let's say for example Armani Stronger With You. It doesn't have the sweetness, but it does have that ambroxan aspect and feeling to it. It's Wood by D Squared. It's a D Squared attempt on modernizing the classic He Wood. And at first I didn't like this one because I thought, you know, He Wood was much smoother, much well blended, better blended, but I do get that they needed to modernize that DNA, and now after trying it more I like it. I mean, it does have the He Wood DNA, only that it has this fizziness to it, which comes with the chemicals, the modern chemicals, which makes the fragrance last long. And you know, it's modern, it's just that it's not sweet. At number 5, it's a fragrance that should be a summer fragrance. It's just that it's too intense to be a summer fragrance. It's a Neroli Canvas by Haramain. This is a clone or a fragrance inspired by Neroli Portofino by Tom Ford. which is indeed a summer fragrance, but this is a much more intense version of that one, which makes this fragrance not so safe to wear during the summer. I mean, it makes it better to be worn during spring. It has that DNA. It's basically the same scent, it's just much more intense and a bit more sweet. It's a bit odd because this has the scent profile of this smells like summer holidays. Most of the time you will find few occasions to wear this, but smells great. So in the spring, when the flowers are blooming, this is the time for this fragrance. The next fragrance is something that I recently discovered and I recently did a first impression of. And in that impression, I said that it's too feminine. In the opening, it is feminine, but then it's very much unisex. It's Dahlia by Jesus del Pozo. This is an Oriental floral fragrance. And in the opening, it smells very much like tuberose. It's sweet, a bit more mature, because that's what tuberose does to a fragrance. As the tuberose goes away, this becomes more and more unisex to a point where it actually leans more towards the masculine side, in my opinion. But overall, I think this is a more serious, not mature. It's a bit mature in the opening, but then it's just a more serious version of an Oriental floral fragrance. Number 3, it's my Dior Sauvage, but more classic and more classy and more well-rounded, more sophisticated, more complex and very unique Solo Loewe. I'm comparing this to Dior Sauvage because it's as versatile as Dior Sauvage. It's better in my opinion, and maybe I'm saying that because Dior Sauvage, it's being worn too much these days. Maybe if people would wear this as much as they wear Dior Sauvage, maybe this would become boring, but they don't. So I'm choosing this one instead. I'm not going to talk too much about Solo Loewe because I did so many videos including this fragrance in them lately, so you can check those out and get a better idea on this fragrance. The next fragrance is one that should have been featured in my 10 fragrances for life video. It's only that I'm afraid it's being discontinued, so I couldn't have this for the rest of my life if I was to have only 10 fragrances. It's Keaton Man. This is again a floral fragrance, white flowers, slightly fruity and sweet. Again, something I compare to Dior Sauvage because it's aromatic as Dior Sauvage is. It's also very versatile. But again, it's more unique. Not many people know about this fragrance. Long lasting, very good fragrance. But again, because it was not hyped enough, because people don't wear it as much, they probably decided to discontinue it. And my number 1 is again a fragrance which sadly I think it discontinued, but it smells so good. It's a designer. It's Kenzo Power. This is also a floral fragrance, and unfortunately the word power here doesn't resemble the performance of the fragrance. If this was released in an intense version or EDP concentration, maybe this was still on the market enjoying a great success, but it's not. This has unfortunately a very poor performance, despite the fact that when you first spray this one, feels like it's a strong fragrance because it has this powerful floral, slightly powdery, but also very invigorating fragrance, invigorating smell. It's like when you mix your fragrance and at the same time you're chewing gum, mint gum, and the mint combines with the smell of the fragrance, and you get that, you know, invigorating smell. It's the same thing with this fragrance. It's just that the poor performance, I think it killed this fragrance. But if this was stronger, definitely it would have been one of the best designer fragrances. And these were the 10 fragrances I'm going to use this spring in 2021. What are your choices? And if you have any thoughts on the fragrances I've just shown you, as always, feel free to leave a comment below. Until the next video, you just keep smelling great.